So one thing I wanted to bring up was my name is actually Victor Mena.
Okay.
In all documents, just in case it matters, it says Victor Zambrano, which is some other guy.
Oh, okay.
No, no, it's just that my full name is Victor Francisco Mena Zambrano, and so the assumption is that Zambrano is my last name, but it's not.
Okay. Well, I can fix that.
Just
Yeah. No, we want
the
to make
record.
sure. Good. Welcome, Monica. All right.
Thank you.
So, Madam Chair, we are live and you have a quorum. So we'll do a quick roll call here at 3:01. And here comes Heike right now as well. Okay, so start this roll call as Heike joins. So Monica,
Present.
Victor,
Present.
Heike,
Present.
and Brianna.
Present.
All right. Over to you, Madam Chair.
All right. Thank you, Clerk Moss, and good afternoon, everyone. Good to see all your faces. I will call the meeting to order as of 3:02 p.m. And we'd like to get started reviewing and approving the meeting minutes from our March 9th meeting. And if there are not any corrections or additions, I would appreciate a motion to accept the meeting minutes from our March 9th meeting. That would be Victor, Monica, or Heike. Or Heike, I don't think you were here.
I can't do it.
Always deja vu sometimes. Victor, I'll pass it to you.
Sure, I was just gonna say I'll make a motion to accept last meeting's minutes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we accept the meeting minutes from our March 9th meeting. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Thank you so much for that. Before we go to our next topic, Clerk Moss and I did receive notice from Christian, one of our fellow commissioners, on that he is not able to participate due to some increased work responsibilities. So he has resigned from the commission, and I believe we still have a quorum and the ability to continue the work that we need to do to pull a report together and a proposal. But I just want to validate that during this call, if there's any other action we need to do aside from letting this group know that we received that notice.
Thank you for the update.
No problem. All right.
I'm glad we still can do work.
I think we're in good shape. Okay, Heike, go ahead. Do you have a question?
Yeah, do we know if there was any other alternatives or is that it?
That was, so you started with the 5 members that were appointed with the 1 alternate. So once dropped off and then we moved Victor up. So there's no one else that applied. So you are the final 4.
Okay, the final 4, I like that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So we have Kasondra joining us this afternoon. Thanks so much for being available. I know we had some questions just around, I had some curiosity specifically about COLA for the upcoming year or this year, and just any updates or information that you would be able to share with us as we go forth to make a final recommendation as a commission. And then also if there's any questions from the rest of the group that you have for Kasondra, this would be the time to ask. So Kasondra, can I pass the floor to you to share any information?
Sure. So I was just going to give you guys maybe like a high level of my current process when determining class and comp for our internal employees. So what we do is we will first, if it's a brand new class, we'll work through designating the different kind of high level duties that this position would be responsible for. And then we go ahead and do a market study with that. So what that means is that we go out to other outside agencies. Before I came, they would call it the Great Eight. So there was 8 agencies that we would primarily focus on, but due to like size and scope and like demographics of agencies, they added 4 additional counties to our Great Eight. So now we look at 12. And just real quick, that's going to be Multnomah, Clackamas, Clark County, Marion, City of Portland, City of Hillsborough, City of Beaverton, City of Vancouver, Pierce County, Sonomish, Spokane, and Lane. I know I said that kind of fast, but so again, we just kind of look at their class specs. We try to find class specs that are similar, where the nature of the work is generally similar. And then Washington County pays at the median. So we do, and we look at all things, right? Not all things, it's not total compensation, but we look for like PERS pickups. It will be a little bit more intense of a market study for our represented group, but different things like that. So we have a formula, and I think you guys have the form. I was just trying to give you like a high level of like, here's the template that I use when I'm trying to do a market study for class specs. And so, like I said, from that data, we determine kind of like what the median is and then place them accordingly. We also do an internal triangulation. So that's going to look at similar positions within Washington County, and then the hierarchy within the department, and then holistically the whole county, and make sure that they're placed accordingly too. So multiple factors play into how a position is compensated. So I know that's really high level. I just didn't know how in depth you guys wanted me to go.
Yeah, I am curious. So what is the merit or the review cycle for your increases? And I've heard COLA reference. Just if you can explain what those comp events are that you have and the timing of those.
Yeah, so the COLA, the cost of living increase that happens, that's usually suggested due to many, I would say it's more like a leadership decision with finance and looking at obviously at the just different things, and then they decide on a factor, and then the board approves that. So that doesn't have any benchmarking or market studies done. Well, there's market studies, but not like class specific on those. But the county does look at a grouping of class specs every year, and does a whole market study on those, like they call it benchmarking, and looks at those and uses those same grade 8 plus the new 4, the slashers plus the new 4, and kind of plays out where those are sitting comparable to the market. Due to budget constraints, and we had the Oregon Equal Pay Act that happened one year, so that kind of took any adjustments to market that year, and then kind of recuperating. So there hasn't been any market adjustments for the past 3 years.
Thank you.
Sandra, I'm wondering if you could speak to them about the other types of marketing comparisons for higher level positions.
Sure. We have for like the county administrator, the market study is a little bit different. We looked at we included our 12 comparators. Those were all done. But the design the future philosophy, they added some jurisdictions out of Oregon. So Kansas, Virginia, California, Colorado, 2 in Colorado, and 2 in Virginia. So again, they looked at through that process. That was before me, so I have a limited amount of kind of knowledge surrounding this. But the way that it was explained to me is they were, again, looking for other agencies that were similar in size and demographics that they could also utilize as a point of data gathering.
Yes, Tom.
I just wanted you to know that the county administrator decided not to take an increase this year. So although they did all of that research, they proposed only a cost of living increase, and I'm not even sure they're going to give that. They're going to make an announcement tomorrow, and I'm not sure where that stands.
And thank you for that, Tom. And just to clarify, when you say they, who are you referring?
Oh,
Who makes the decision?
The Board of County Commissioners makes the decision on the compensation for the county administrator and me.
And once that gets posted, I could send that information out to you guys, what is happening with the budget and COLAs, but I have to wait until it's public.
And just so I'm clear, in terms of the other county employees, are they set to receive COLA, or is that still under review?
That's being discussed and it will be announced tomorrow.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you. Heike.
Thank you. With the COLA, is there a way to get the information for we did the last comparison, I think 2 years ago. I think that's right. Is there a way to find out the COLAs over the past 2 years? Or so that's not,
I know last year it was 4.5% for the unrepresented.
okay. Yeah, and if we can get the prior year as well to find, just so we can get a sense on what the increases were, that would be great. And also, in addition to the COLA, you said, that sometimes they do market adjustments. Are there performance factors that go into the salary settings as well for employees, or is it just the COLA?
Great question. I'm sorry I didn't answer that. That was asked. Yes, so employees, depending on where they come in on the range, so within each pay range, there's a range, and so employees that are non-exempt have steps, and then MAPs or our exempt employees, it's a range. And so I think you guys also have access to that salary matrix where it kind of lists out those. So, and if an employee comes in and they're not at the top of the range, then each year they're eligible for a step increase or to move to the next level in the range. It's usually 3 to 5% is usually the kind of the standard in there.
And is that at a set time of the year, or their anniversary date, or how is that dictated?
Correct. Yeah. So that's going to be within their performance evaluation, and it's usually on their anniversary date.
Thank you. Tom.
I just received permission to tell you what they're going to do about COLAs. So,
that's very timely. Thank you.
Yes. Well, as I said, it's going out tomorrow. The COLAs for the unrepresented team will be 3.5%. The management, the department of directors, the county administrator and me will not receive any COLA at all.
So are there any other roles outside the county administrator that will not receive COLA? Just so I'm clear.
Directors.
The directors? So that's the clean water services?
No, that's separate.
Okay.
I think she did get her increase earlier in the year. She's on a different cycle than the rest of us. So the department directors would be the head of human resources, the head of LUT, the head of the various departments, the sheriff, me, the director, the chief equity officer, the chief finance officer.
Okay.
So basically anybody who runs a department.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's very helpful. Any other questions for Kasondra, or any questions in general?
Yeah, one more question. When we find out the COLAs for the prior 2 years, and I know it's 4.5 last year, but the year before that, did those same group of people, and I know there was a restructure, but what about the county administrator? Did they receive the COLAs then too, or were they also excluded during that time, those past 2 years as well? Do you know? Or can we get that info?
I do not believe that they were, although it's different. The department directors, I believe, just get the same COLA as everybody else. The county administrator and I only get a COLA if approved by the board.
Okay. Okay.
And I know I got one last year.
And what about the year before that?
I wasn't here the year before that, but I assume that the county administrator got one, but I do not know. We can nail that down for you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, I'm just seeing if there's any other questions. Thank you, Cassandra. I think that clears up what we needed or what we were interested in, and it's great to have a timely update about COLA. That'll help our next step. So appreciate that.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. So
Thank
next
you.
up, we are going to debrief on the conversations that we had with the commissioners, and we had some pretty good discussion with each of them, and I wanted to hear from you all, and then I want to make a suggestion for us in terms of next steps. So Heike, I know you were not able to attend the last meeting, but there were very good notes captured, and I love that everything is recorded because we can go back and watch it. But I think we heard some consistent themes from each of them, but wanted to open it up for discussion or any questions anyone may have had just after hearing from each of the commissioners.
Mostly the theme was they didn't seem to care about the pay as much, was my summary for most of the last speakers. I did miss the last one. I will say it is different reading the notes from like actually being here.
Yeah.
So I will say, like, I read the summary for the notes from the last folks who spoke, and then watched or was present last time. But I honestly just thought it was informative and a little bit more eye-opening as I heard that their perspective on why they serve and what they really thought about their pay. I didn't see that they put a lot of importance in it. I don't know if that's proper to say, but that's kind of what I felt that happened. It's just like, we do it to serve. That kept coming up. But I will say, I think that in my opinion, some of them have served for decades, and now we're facing a very different county, and we will hope to get people from different backgrounds. The backgrounds that they come from seem to be very aligned. I grew up in this county. I can see why they would believe what they believe. Like, we can serve for free if we could, right? Or if we wanted to. Not a lot of people in this county could do that. So I wrote that down.
Yeah.
It's one of my bullet points. And just generally, I thought that they were empathetic to the commission, to this commission, and seemed to look forward to hearing what we came up with, which I thought was interesting. The fact that some of them served, I think one of them served as a mayor for free. That brings in a perspective in itself. I don't think I've ever heard of a mayor working for free since I've been and paying attention to politics.
Yeah.
So again, like, their perspectives are completely different from mine. For example, is this what I'm not really sure. What else? I just put a lot of really notes about their time of service, their jobs, and even the commissioner that serves part-time,
Mhm.
I thought his perspective and why he decided to stay part-time was really important. And in terms of like hours spent on the job versus what they expected in income, didn't seem to be something they cared much about, or um, uh, it just seemed like, well, this is how much we commit to every evening, a lot of evenings, a lot of evening work, which I thought that was a factor.
Yeah,
If we're expecting them to work like at 7 p.m. Traveling, I wrote some bullet points about their travel, especially some of the commissioners that are serving in the county or they're like driving far away. I didn't realize that some of the commissioners went to events outside of the county. Well, it makes sense, but again, I didn't realize that. Anyway, those are bullet points that I had written down.
yeah, thank you.
If it
Thank
helps,
you,
it matters.
Victor. That's helpful. I think I heard some themes just around the sensitivity that each of them have around the finances of the county,
Exactly.
and the acknowledgement that, people in these roles may be in different places in their career or financial positions, and it was validating that the work done a couple years ago helped it to be more of a livable wage, and that was another piece that I heard from the conversations. But Monica, Heike, any feedback or thoughts from each of you?
I do, and this is also a question for Tom. I wonder, Tom, if there is a mechanism by which a public official, in this case, a commissioner, could waive their compensation, and whether that is possible.
Yes, and as you can see, I believe Commissioner Rogers serves part-time, it doesn't take full-time compensation.
So there is already a mechanism in place by which they can waive their salary. I mean, I see that slightly different, determining a part-time versus a full-time basis of employment. And if there could be a case when, current or future officials decide not to receive a compensation, that there is a legal way for them to just waive it. And that is very simple and can actually be documented easily for them.
Yeah, I'm not sure they can. I mean, I'd have to think through the labor laws.
A good question.
So it would be just like they're an employee of the county. And the county says that the charter says that their compensation is set by section 30F. So to refuse it, I mean, it's hard to force someone to accept money, but I think I'm not sure there is a mechanism. And then you have the challenge with unpaid labor. And I'm not an expert on labor law, but there have been some pushback over the last few years about people using folks called volunteers or interns. And there are some restrictions on that I could research for you, but I'm not familiar with them off the top of my head.
Yeah, I found something to that effect. And there's just something out there just saying that it should be agreed, voluntary, captured in writing, and they're in accordance with the existing policies. So if the existing policy doesn't allow it, right? But again, I'm not, I don't know anything about labor laws and all these regulations that will apply to the county in particular. So I just thought I would pose the question in case that would be possible. If that was the route that any commissioner would want to go currently or in the future.
My 2 cents on that would be probably they could reduce their salary, but if they're considered employees of the county, that they wouldn't be able to go below the minimum wage. So they could probably go that low, but I wouldn't say that they could go for free.
Yeah, that would be my worry.
Well, they were not being compensated just a few years back.
Yeah.
They were
Isn't that
compensated.
accurate?
No, they were compensated. They were weren't they? Brianna,
49,000.
weren't they aligned to the judges or I mean, it was pretty low, so
Yeah.
he gave a pretty significant increase, but they were
Correct.
still compensated.
Correct. Thank you. Thanks for
And as,
clarifying.
there are a lot of elected officials who serve without pay.
I was just gonna say that. There are
Yeah.
many. There
Yeah,
are
but-
many in our counties here in Oregon that are not compensated at all.
Yeah, the thing is that our charter makes them employees. And
Mhm.
once they're employees, they get the protections of the labor laws.
Okay,
So,
that makes sense. That makes sense. Thank you.
And our scope in terms of the work we're set to do is to give a recommendation for their pay, not specifically the charter in which they are part of, just to
Yeah.
confirm that. We're
Thank
not-
you.
But I like where you're going, Monica. Heike, did you have anything? Okay, great. Well, a consistent theme that I heard from each of the commissioners is one, the sensitivity to the financials of the county. And there were concerns just around inflation. The amount of work doesn't necessarily equate to performance, or everyone can navigate these positions a little differently. And I think we heard that from some of our commissioners. So hearing the information that Tom shared about COLA, I wanted to suggest to this team that we start on a report or some sort of recommendation as we continue to collect the comparator data, because I know we have a timeline and we want to be able to accomplish what we need to accomplish. And I think we have some really good feedback and things to work off of. So I'd like to start with drafting a proposal for our team to review in between the next meeting for us to share as we continue to collect the comparator data. But I want to make sure we're aligned on based on what we've heard, the information we've heard from human resources, we've received from Sherry, what are we inclined to do at this point? So directionally, I can capture that in what I put together, because I think we can continue to collect information, but if we're aligned in just the approach, we can start pushing forward with what we would ultimately present to the board. Heike.
What I would like to see is, because I think we set the salaries 2 years ago. And since that time, we didn't include any mechanism for increases on the COLA. So I don't believe, and
COLA was part of the recommendation, that it's tied to whatever.
Oh, they did. So
Yeah.
they did receive it. Okay, I forgot that piece of it then. Because I was thinking they might have been falling behind what the others, our internal comparators were receiving. But if that's not the case, then ignore that whole piece.
No, well, so do you have thoughts on just recommendations?
I'd like
How we should move forward?
I'd like to see what the market comparators are to see if we're still in line with what we've done in the past. 2 years, I mean, maybe there's a little movement there. And it looks like it maybe was taken into account on the internal comparators as well, market, just to take a look at the market. But as far as the compensation itself, I'd like to align it with the other internal comparators. And if there's if they're not receiving, what I heard were those people that what I have identified as internal comparators, they're not receiving raises this year. They're not receiving a COLA raise. And so if they're not receiving a COLA raise and they're the internal comparators, then I don't believe that the commissioners should receive a raise either. That's the way I'm kind of leaning, as long as they receive the other years as well.
Thanks, Heike. Tom?
I just wanted to make clear that what is going to be announced tomorrow is what will be in the county administrator's proposed budget. That what actually happens will depend on what the commission does when it approves the budget. We're just beginning the budget process. The budget has to be approved by July 1st. but it'll be approved in May. But so that they could go a completely different way and finding a different way to address the budget. So I didn't want to misrepresent. That is the CAO's proposed budget.
Got it. And just to clarify how the proposal, I'm going to try to share my screen. Here we go. How the previous commission phrased it was that COLA increase would be provided consistent with what's granted by the county administrator's office. So we could consider some similar language or something that would align it with what the ultimate decision is. So there's some equity and consistency around that. So just to kind of share how we handled that prior. All right.
And so when there's a COLA for the county, does everyone receive the same amount then, regardless of position? So long as they're getting it? Is that the way the COLA is distributed?
It probably varies. So what I heard from Kasondra is that, well, and is this the proposed recommendation that unrepresented staff would get 4.5%? And
Right.
management wouldn't receive COLA. And my assumption is that may have varied historically. Tom?
It's 3.5%.
Last year it was 4.5%.
Thank you. Wrong note. Thank you. 3.5.
And Heike, I can ask HR for the COLAs for those positions that you're asking about from HR about the prior COLAs.
Yeah, because I think I heard it was 4.5, but I just don't know if the commissioners got 4.5 as well. And everyone gets a flat 4.5, or if it varies depending on the position itself.
Yeah, and I think I sent you an email about the COLA that the commissioners did receive. I can go back and look at it from Kenny.
Oh, and I can go back and look as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's a good question though, because yeah, I think my assumption is that the management or the leadership are trying to be cognizant of inflation, also the impact that it has to the rest of staff. That's why they're declining COLA, but it would be good to have that historical information. Okay, Monica, what are your thoughts?
Thank you. We started doing the external comparators, including 7 other counties, and that was the basis of the analysis that was done 2 years ago. And what we heard from Kasondra today is that there are actually 8, and they added 4 more due to different economic changes. So I think we need to go back and add at least 5 more to come back with you and a better analysis of what the external market looks like. And even within that list, there are a lot of counties that actually see increase in their budgets and increase in the population. That was not the case, right? In Washington County. So we'll create 2 subsets of data so that we can rely on comparators that are relevant to Washington County.
Yeah, and I know that it can be challenging to get some of that information quickly, Monica. So I would be hesitant to include 5 more comparators. I think you could make a reach, but maybe you and Victor deciding what's the minimum you'd like to have in order to.
It's actually really easy. A lot of them have salary commissions as well, and they have the documents posted.
Okay, great. So is that something that you both can present at our next meeting? Okay.
Yes.
Just, I know we're trekking to a timeline.
Yes.
Sure we can.
I think the only question is, from your experience and Heike's, is if this was done, from reading the comments, a lot of the comments say human resources didn't get back to us or per human resources, but I found most of the data out there without having to reach out to human resources.
Yeah, there were quite a few pieces that I recall that weren't clear, or we had follow-up questions on just based on what was posted. And so there were some unknowns, and what maybe we were looking for more details in the information, and ultimately we ended up presenting on what we could gather. But I just recall that we weren't able to get everything we were hoping to receive just based on people's capacity and our capacity to continue to follow up on things. So Heike, I don't recall if that was your experience, but that's what I remember.
Yeah, and I was only focused on the internal, so I didn't try looking for the external comparators.
Yeah.
No, that's great. Thank you, Brianna.
Thanks. Wonderful. Okay, so Monica, what I heard from you is you'd like to get some more comparators to review and really look at if the counties are in similar positions financially from a growth perspective to inform your recommendation.
From a budget perspective, yes.
Okay, great. Victor.
And this is just from ignorance of not knowing, for example, that meeting, Tom, where they made that decision about the COLAs, is that public? Is there like meeting minutes? I'd just like to know if there's a way we could see if their decision was based off the fact that the county doesn't have enough money, or, yeah.
The whole information I gave you is going to be announced tomorrow. It's the county administrator's decision.
Okay.
And I've been able to read the email. It is certainly about the budget reductions. There's a
Got it.
$25 million budget gap, and the explanation for the department directors is it's a symbolic gesture really to show their willingness to participate.
Understood. Awesome. Which is why I think Monica has brought up a good point. When we were looking at we did talk briefly one time about the external competitors, where like some of these counties are bringing in a ton more tax money, right? So it's not really fair in a way to look at our county that isn't bringing that much money compared to these people. I don't know. Anyway, I just wanted to put that out there. Clearly, I'm not articulating it as well as I could, but essentially, that was, thank you, Tom, that really helps me. I don't really have any other questions that I can think of.
Thanks, Victor. Great. Okay, so in terms of, I recall asking kind of each commissioner, how did the previous increases play out? Has it, what's your feedback around that? And also, if the decision were up to them, would they support an increase for the pay? And I'm going to try to tally what that was for this group and follow up. But from what I recall, each of them felt that they understood the situation of what the county is experiencing, and none of them said, yeah, I need a pay increase. So I wanted to just make sure our commission was aware, because everyone wasn't able to join all of the discussions. So just spending some time to hear their feedback, and then thinking about like what Monica brought forth. Are we comparing like counties, like financial situations to what we recommend for this board? So we'll definitely continue to have more discussion, and I'll put a kind of skeleton together of what our report can include, but just making sure that we're not only looking at the data, but looking at the entire picture in terms of what we propose as a commission. So appreciate the dialogue. All right. Heike, do you have any updates related to internal comparators?
First, one question. so we're setting the salary again for 2 years, right?
Yes.
So that it would be possible if we say, you know, let's just hypothetically, no increases this year. And then if Monica and Victor find that there's a discrepancy between the market that in true comparators in the market, we can say that maybe make adjustments next year or something to that effect.
I think, I don't know if we can build that into our
Okay.
recommendation because it's kind of for that 2023, 2024
Okay,
time frame, and I think it's kind of our responsibility to do that market review. We could give a recommendation if the budget warrants
okay,
this amount. We would recommend this in 2024, but I don't know how that would play out. So maybe we could talk about that as you all find that information, and hopefully the county's in a better financial situation. But I think that's something that we can consider that we really didn't broach when we did this a couple years ago. So I'll make a note of that too, Heike.
okay. And the only update I have, and I apologize, Sherry, I sent Sherry the information late, but I asked for the internal comparators that I identified as that group, the Office of Equity and Inclusion and Community Engagement, the Public Affairs and Communications, Finance, Human Resources, and the County Administrator. And so getting their duties, because I know there was a restructure, so just getting the scope of their responsibilities so I can compare those positions on how they've changed to the county commissioners. And then the salary, but maybe the salary, Sherry, now that I know that this COLA was included, maybe that's not a big issue anymore, because I think I may have the salary ranges for those positions already, but I have to go back and take a look.
Just keep in mind with the restructure, some of the positions and the responsibilities have changed, such as the CFO. Also, we don't have assistant deputy administrators anymore. We now have ACAs or assistant county administrators. And that group was not in your request.
Right. And
as well.
No, we had that last time when we did the evaluation. I got all the information for those duties. It's these people here that I don't have the duties for after the restructure.
Okay.
Yeah, so thank you. But that's the only update I have, Brianna.
Okay, thank you, Heike. Right, and we will hear from Victor and Monica at our next meeting on an update for the external comparators. Any other discussion or topics anyone want to review before we close out for today?
Just a quick clarifying question. From this committee, this would be the second report, right? This would be the second recommendation ever.
Since the forming of this salary commission, yes.
And then, okay, and then only because I get confused with the state legislature. So it's do we call it like a biennial? Is that even? No. Okay, I saw Sherry saying. Oh, shake your head. Okay, cool. All right, awesome. All right. So every 2 years, second report. Got it.
Thanks, Victor.
Yeah,
go ahead,
Monica. I do
Monica.
have another question, and this is more of a background question about how it was set a couple of years ago, because it is a set amount, and the only flexibility that this process and this methodology allows is for COLA on an annual basis. Is that a fair description of how the process works?
Well, I think so when Heike and I did the commission, go ahead, Tom, you might be able to recap this quicker than me. Go ahead.
That you set the salary, you can do it any way you like. The charter just said that salary is established by the salary commission. The last salary commission decided to use COLA. You could say a set increase. You could do it. You could tie it to anything that you like. That's legal.
Correct.
So you don't need to.
So I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page, that that's how the current methodology works. And there are other methodologies that are a little more formulae, right? That it could be tying to another position, an internal position that would be relevant to set the salary for commissioners and adjust it based on what is believed to be a fair adjustment to that base salary. And as that base salary changes year over year, the commissioner's salary would also change besides the COLA adjustment. That would be an alternative. I think that what I'm talking about is an alternative methodology. Were there discussions before about that, or is that something that maybe this group or separately we can entertain?
Well, prior to the commission forming, the salaries were set as a percentage against, I forget what the position was, but it was tied to a position previously, and it had been that way for many, many years, and it didn't keep up with, I think the salaries were close to, the current salary for the county commissioners was 49,000. And the board chair was 123,000. So there was, with that methodology, it still set them behind. So I think if we propose something like that, we are just really confident that it can move with the signs of the time. So it went from something like that before Monica, and then it was shifted based on the recommendation of.
Correct.
the
Yeah,
last
yeah,
commission.
yes, I recall something like that, but I don't know whether there was a commission that was revising that percentage adjustment in any type of frequency.
No. So I can answer that. So they were tied to the circuit court judge at the time. So the chair was paid 80% of that salary, and then the other commissioners were paid 40% of the chairs. So in essence, there might be confusion that the commissioners were part-time. They weren't part-time commissioners. They were just paid at a part-time rate.
Okay, so it
So
sounds
that's
like there
about
were a couple of variables that probably resulted into the salary being set getting stale. But as those variables could be changed, right? Not assuming a part-time basis, not tying necessarily to the same position, there could be a different result. And an update every 2 years. I think that this may be a model exploring. And from what I read, it's also a model that a lot of the counties use.
Do you have an example, Monica?
I do. I'll send it to you via email. There are several out there of how other salary commissions are working.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, so I want to just confirm our timeline, because we may need to add some additional dates. And Clerk Moss, can you help me understand the cadence of when? I know we were set for May 2nd, I believe, to present to the board commissioners. What would be the next opportunity to do that? Is it a weekly meeting that?
So it is weekly. So the board meets 3 times a month. So they don't meet for a board meeting on the second week of the month. So the next one would be May 16th.
Okay. Great. Okay. So for now, if we could just hold time, and it's in the morning, right, Clerk Moss? The meeting is
Yes,
in the AM.
that will be in the AM.
Yeah, if we could hold time for May 16th, if we need to add another salary commission meeting prior to our final report. We'll once we meet, I think in April, the first part of April, I think we'll have a good sense of where we're at with the comparator data, with the recommendations, and then the final report. But just if we could save that date, just planning ahead, I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Great. Any other topics or discussion? One thing I meant to ask you, Heike, with Christian no longer being on the commission, do you need help with the comparator data that you're working on?
You know, I think at this point I can work through it.
Okay, well, I am available if you need some help, so just let me know. I'm happy to jump in.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, well, if there aren't any other topics, I would like to call our meeting to a close as of 3:51. And I think that's all I need to do. So appreciate the time this afternoon, and we'll get back to it in a couple weeks. I hope you all have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
Sure,
You too.
everybody.
Take
Bye.
care, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.